Right, awesome. So today we are going to be presenting on person-centered planning. As Reese just mentioned, it's built into the self-determination program. So we're hoping that you walk away from today with a little bit more clarity on what these words mean, and maybe you feel a little bit more empowered on where you can start yourself in your person-centered planning process. So my name is Cristina Mercado, and I'm the Person-Centered Thinking Coordinator here at the Regional Center of Orange County. And this is my co-presenter, Tim. He's a member of the committee. Do you have anything you want to say about yourself, or shall we move on? Move on. Okay, we're going to keep it going. And I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of background, and then when we're talking about the actual person-centered planning process, Tim is going to be co-presenting with me and sharing his personal experience. So the first thing I want to do is I want to provide you a definition of what all of these terms mean, because I'm sure there are things that you've heard being thrown around, and so I'm hoping to clarify that for you. So I'm going to talk about the difference between person-centered planning and person-centered thinking. I'm going to give you a couple of the core concepts within that, which is important to, for, and finding the balance. We're going to talk about what a person-centered planning meeting looks like. And that's where Tim's going to come in and share his personal experience. We're going to talk about the kind of information that you learn in a person-centered planning meeting. It's called discovery information. We're going to talk about how then to organize all of that information into something that later becomes an action plan. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is person-centered thinking, and how does that differ from person-centered planning? So person-centered thinking is basically the overarching theory. It's the belief that you are the expert in your own life. That we want to try to have power with you, not power over you, as you're trying to achieve whatever your goals might be in your life. We want to equally emphasize what's important to and for people, and I'll highlight what that means in the next slide in a few minutes. But basically, it's a common set of language that we can all use so that we can all be on the same page together. So if we understand these basic common vocabulary that we are using, it's going to help us all to assist people to get that life that they are trying to achieve. And person-centered planning is actually the action process of putting person-centered thinking into place. So the goal of person-centered planning is not to get an awesome document or a really good report. The goal is to help people actually have better lives at the end of the planning process. It's using plans to advocate. So if we can help to figure out what the most important thing is to a person and whatever their overarching dream might be, that plan now becomes an advocacy tool for them to say, this is what I want out of my life, and I would like help in achieving this. So if we can make it really clear what they want and infuse their voice into that document, then that document becomes extremely powerful. It's all about empowering the person through the process. And finally, it's about, it's a way to assist people who maybe might have a difficult time envisioning what that life might look like. So a lot of us in the room have been asked what our hopes and dreams are. And so through the person-centered planning process, it gives people the opportunity to figure out what those hopes and dreams are when maybe they haven't been asked that in their life. So we can help them construct whatever that vision of their life might be. Oops, keep going. All right, so the core concepts within person-centered thinking are important to and important for. And I'm going to try my best to just simplify this. So important to is essentially those things that bring us joy and satisfaction. It's the way that we choose to live our life. It's our favorite things, our favorite way to spend our weekend, how we like to wake up late on a Sunday, how we like to have our cup of coffee. All of that falls within the things that are important to us, and they are all tailored and specific to who we are as people. And on the other side, we have things that are important for us. Those are things like ensuring that we stay healthy and safe. So let me try to explain the relationship between these two things. Can we all agree, raise your hand if you think that exercising and eating healthy is really important for us? Yeah, we all need to do it. How many of us actually exercise regularly every day and eat healthy? I'm going to put my hand down. Okay, a couple people in the room, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, but that leads into my next point, which is that we're not going to do anything that's important for us unless it also relates to things that are important to us. So for those of you who do exercise or eat healthy, I venture to say that it's most likely because maybe there's something that's tied to what's important to you. Maybe you have a family member with an illness and you want to prevent that for yourself. Maybe you just enjoy exercise. Maybe you want to look good in your clothes, or maybe you just want to get away from your family and have a little bit of alone time, whatever it might be. So with people with developmental disabilities, though, as a system, we have spent a lot of time trying to ensure that they are healthy and safe and figuring out how to find things that are important for them. We haven't done as good a job on figuring out those things that are important to them. So I'm going to take like a little poll in the room. I'm going to spread my hands out and you tell me when to stop. If you think about your loved one in your life, how much paperwork do you think is in their life that talks about the things that are important for them? And I'm going to keep going. Anywhere? The things that are important for them, health and safety. How much paperwork do you think is out there that encompasses all of that? We could fill up the room, maybe. Now think about that same loved one. How much paperwork is out there that talks about the things that bring them joy, their passions, the things they love? People are saying no. Do you think this much? This much in the back? Very little. So that is what the person-centered planning process is all about. It's about figuring out a way to get this information and record it in a way where it's usable, where people can actually start to use that information to help people get the lives that they want. And in figuring out that information, our goal is to find a balance between these two things. When we're imbalanced, we have lives where people are very healthy and safe, but maybe not very happy. Or maybe we have lives where people are getting all the things that they want and not living lives that are very safe. So our goal is to help people find that balance. And the best way to find that balance is to figure out what's important to them and how we can support them in achieving whatever their dreams might be, but also figuring out what's important for them and helping support them on their own terms. So I'll talk a little about that in a second. And bear with me while I jump through the theory, and then we'll get to the star of the show, Tim, over here. Okay, so I want to show you this quick video just for a visual of what we mean when we're talking about person-centered planning.
From the origin of person-centered planning, we were trying to understand and see what it looks like when we just fit people into systems and defined their needs and saw them through the eyes of what a system needs for a person to be in order to generate the funding that's required and to basically service them. And system-centered work tends to be based on a medical model which assumes something's wrong with people, and it's the system's job to fix them. And so the system is invested in defining them in terms of their deficiencies and creating a treatment plan, and then working to help people get it right before they get to be members and be whole people in the real world. So person-centered planning offers a major contrast to that, which is to say that people don't belong to systems. They belong to themselves, they belong to their families and their communities. And if we see them in a different light by the capacities that they bring, and we understand that their communities are the place where they can contribute and be citizens, then our thinking shifts dramatically from how to fit people into systems and service them there to how do we support people to live good lives in community, and then how do we take what we need from systems and services so that services are not bad, they just tend to be wired for their own purposes, for their own self-interest. So a good person-centered planning process calls into question the way we use services and invites us to really change the way most of our services are configured to be more responsive to the people and the way that they want to live in the communities that they're in.
All right, so as you're thinking about all of this, I'm gonna ask you to draw and remember this image in your head. This is called the person-centered planning pyramid, and at the very top is people's hopes and dreams and where they want to be in their life. So the goal of person-centered planning is to help people figure out what those hopes and dreams are and help them achieve them. That is really, really big, right? That is not something that is going to happen after one person-centered planning meeting. That is the ultimate goal in the long run. So I want you to remember that. Everybody is going to be in a different place on this mountain You're gonna hear Tim share his experience tonight, and you might feel like that's not where you are in your life or where your loved one is. That's okay, we're all gonna be in different places here, okay? So I want you to remember that as you're listening to Tim share his experience. So within this mountain, at the bottom here, there are some people that their goal right now is just to feel healthy and safe on their own terms, okay? So we wanna figure out how to support them on their own terms. Once we can help people feel healthy and safe on their own terms, then we can start to figure out, what are your likes? What do you wanna do for fun? Let's try those things. Once they've had those opportunities, we can then say, why don't we try new things? And when they've had all these different opportunities, then we can start to have a conversation about what their hopes and dreams might be. But everyone is gonna be in a different place on this mountain, and our goal here as support for people that we love in our lives is to help them scale this mountain, okay? All right, so let's jump in and talk a little bit about the person-centered planning meeting and where do you even start in this process. So before the meeting, I think the best thing to do is figure out what the purpose of your meeting is gonna be. Why are you getting together? And when you have a really good purpose, then you can figure out who you want to be at that meeting. If you invite everybody in your life, that's gonna be a really fun meeting, but it might not be a very focused meeting. So get a good purpose together and then figure out who you wanna invite from there. With the people who are coming, you're gonna wanna clarify whatever their role might be and why they are there at their meeting. And then finally, ensure that everybody is there committed to partnership. So Tim, do you wanna talk a little bit about that?
There were about 6 people in my house for my person-centered planning. One of my friend that I've known for over 10 years. She is a trainer at a gym that I belong to. We became friends because of the gym. Another friend that I've known for almost 30 years. We met in summer camp when we were teenagers. I have one famous friend that I've known for over 20 years. And he is in the music and television industry. I also invited my friend that knows my SLS case very well because we quickly became friends 13 years ago when I was with the agency that she managed. It was amazing to see how easy to get my peers to be involved in my meeting. I was kind of shocked that they all wanted to come together and be a part of my plan. My service coordinator was there also, and she learned a lot from my meeting on how to do person-centered planning. My friend Roxy, who is a personal trainer, doesn't know about my personal life other than our friendship in the gym. She has known me for a very long time, and I wanted her to be a part of my team because she has a totally different perspective about me. Most of my friends aren't my direct staff, meaning they are not on the payroll to help me. They just know me as Tim that likes to do stuff, and they understand that I need help from time to time when we go out. I wanted a variety of friends being a part of my team because they all know me in different ways and the meeting wouldn't be so regiment. It was more like a get-together than a meeting.
Thank you, Tim. So Tim chose to have people in his life who are actually not paid to support him, even though he was talking a lot about the different areas of his life. So if you want to have people there who are part of your friends and family or people who've known you for a long time, that's absolutely fine. Who should definitely be there is you, the person who this plan is built around, need to be at this meeting. Any members of your circle of support, however you want to define that. You can have support staff and vendors there if you want. You can also have your service coordinator there to help you think about the different services that might be available and out there in the community, and really anybody else. So Tim just listed off all of the different people that he chose to have at his meeting. And we'll talk in a minute about his purpose and why all of those people were essential to that purpose that he had decided. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the goal of the meeting is to be positive and productive. This is not about hashing out all the issues in a person's life. This is about figuring out how can we help them, again, scale that mountain. Okay, so when you start a meeting, in your slides, you're going to, if you have a copy of them, you're going to see this. I'm showing it in a different way on my PowerPoint, but if you want to reference back throughout the training, this is basically the order of how we ran Tim's meeting, and this is a rough draft of how you could run your meeting if you wanted to. So the first thing we did when we had this meeting is we decided to restate our purpose. Why were we here? Because we wanted to remind everyone what the purpose of the meeting was. So this is Tim's purpose. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to have him explain how he came up with this purpose for his meeting. So Tim emailed me, and he had like 20 things he wanted to talk about at this meeting. And I said, we're not going to have time for all of that. We need to narrow it down. So he decided that his purpose was going to be to develop a video that can be used to train new support staff, to create a document that reflects what's most important to me, what supports I need in my life, and how I want those supports delivered, and to provide insight to others on who I am as a person, as a friend, and a friend. So Tim, do you want to share more about how you came to that?
When I approached Christina about having a person-centered plan, I had many ideas that I wanted to discuss in my meeting. I think Christina and I were emailing each other more than a dozen times within a 30-minute period.
It's true.
We knew that the list was getting too long and some of the goals were getting too convoluted to each other. I've always been a goal-driven person. Once I have a goal in mind, it's very hard for me to forget. Sometimes I need to put it aside and let it be. But my mind is always thinking about how can I accomplish my goals. I knew that I needed to cut my list down for the meeting because it was getting overwhelming to think about. Also, I knew that I will have many more person-centered plans with different outcomes that I want to achieve. I've always wanted to have a training video on how to help me with my personal needs because I go through so many staffs. When I was thinking of who I wanted to invite in my team, I was going through my list of friends who can best help me. I have to admit that it was daunting at first to narrow down what was most important in my plan. But I had to remember that my plan was totally feasible if I got the right people on my team. In fact, after the meeting was over, my friends started talking to people that they knew about my project, and those people were asking how they could be involved.
Thank you, Tim. All right, so we restated the purpose at that meeting. Everybody knew why we were there and what we were talking about. Everybody could start to think in their head, how can we help Tim accomplish this video goal? But before we started, I said, I want to establish a few ground rules. So at your meeting, you can set up ground rules to say, this is how we want the meeting to run. So these are my ground rules, but you can kind of come up with whatever ones you want. My favorite ones are that we are agreeing to be respectful. Everybody's going to be respectful. My second one is that we are going to avoid using jargon. So we're not going to use disability talk, and we're not going to use language that we would only read about in a report. We're going to talk about people from the heart. The third one that I like to do is I like to state that we're not going to focus on fixing people today. We're going to focus on supporting people. And then the last one is we're going to instill the 5-minute rule, which is if an issue comes up and we can't resolve it in 5 minutes, I don't know that we're going to resolve it at this meeting, and we might have to put that and table that for another day, because that can happen sometimes and that can really derail a meeting. So these are my rules, but you can decide whatever you want. I encourage you to instill some rules in whatever meeting you might be having for your loved one or for yourself. And then the next thing I like to do is I like to start the meeting with an opening round question. A couple of my favorites are, tell me about the last time that you had fun with Tim or whoever the meeting might be with, or tell me what you like and admire about the person. And the reason I think this is really helpful is because it gets everybody on the same page. If we want this meeting to be positive and productive, we need to start everybody off on a positive and productive note. And it helps people focus on what's at the core of who the person that they are there supporting. I want people to talk about how they know the person, again, from the heart, not from a piece of paper, and it sets a really good tone. There we go. So I like to ask the like and admire question. I encourage you all to do that at any meeting that you are with for your loved one. You can ask at an IEP and say, before we start, can we go around the room and just tell me what you like and admire about my son or daughter? You can do that at your RCOC IPP meeting, whatever it is. I highly encourage you to do that. And I'm going to show you what Tim's like and admire looks like, because with one round, this is what everybody was able to come up with at that meeting. And Tim didn't want to share anything about this slide because he felt uncomfortable, but I'm going to share it for you. So he has an amazing positive attitude. He's funny, he's determined, he's super smart and well-versed. He's very generous as a host. He provided us with his guests with muffins. That was really nice. He's really productive, and I can attest to that because Tim has like 50 different hobbies that he's into, and he's a really interesting person. He's honest. He's a great son and brother and uncle, and he's very encouraging to everybody that's around him. So these are not things that Tim said about himself, although Tim could probably add to this if he wanted to. These were things that came out of that one meeting. All right, so we're going to start on a positive note, and then we're going to move in and say, how do we figure out what's important to this person? If I just asked Tim, tell me what's important to you, you'd be able to give me some information, but I bet you it would be really generic. You'd say family, my independence, friends, books. All of that is great, but the books that I like to read might be different from the books that Tim likes to read. So we want to get those little nuanced details about the person. And the way we do that is by using some person-centered discovery tools. I'm going to highlight 4, and I'm not going to go too into detail about them because Tim's going to show you his training video at the end, and it's going to highlight a lot of these things in these tools, okay? So to be determined or in the future. So the first tool I want to share is called the relationship map. This is a visual way that you can represent all of the relationships that a person has in their life. It's broken down into quadrants. So up here, you can visually represent people's families. The person is in the center. Down here, you've got whoever their friends might be. On this side, you have people who support them at work or in their job. And over here, you have people who support them at home. So Tim's relationship map looks a little bit like this. Tim, do you want to share your experience with the relationship map?
As much as I don't like to admit, my circle of friends can overflow this room. It's an ongoing joke with my family that when I depart this earth, that they need to rent out a conference hall for my friends to come, eat, and celebrate my life. My family knows that my friends doesn't eat cheap. In my team meeting, it was fascinating to me to see all the different views that my friends had about me. Mostly good, but some bad. They like to dig in me, but I dig deeper into them. While we were brainstorming on my plan and video, one of my friends suggested that I write my own script. He mentioned that a video needs to reflect my personality and humor in order to attract the right applicants for the job. I would have never thought about this if it wasn't for my team.
So having the right people there in the room really helped this goal that Tim had come to life, and someone suggested write your own script, and I think someone else said add your own music. Was that correct? So the video really became more personalized and tailored to Tim. Okay, another way you can think about the relationship map, if doing the quadrants makes you feel uncomfortable, is to think about how people relate to the person in the middle. So these are the people that are closest to them. They're in their intimacy circle. These are people that maybe they are just friends with. These are people that they participate with in a daily basis, maybe the people they go to day program or work with who are not necessarily their friends. And these are people that they make exchanges with. Think about the person at the grocery store, the teller, the physician, whatever it might be. So this is another way that you can think about the different relationships in a person's life and how you might be able to move people from that participation circle into the friendship circle. Okay, so the next tool that we used is called a ritual and routine evaluation. I'm not going to go super into detail about this, but if you were to break down all of the rituals and routines that we do in our daily life, you would start to realize that there are some very important things that we have in those routines that lead us to have good days. So for instance, coffee drinkers in the room? Most of us, maybe tea or something. How many of us like to drink our coffee black? So if I gave you coffee the way that I like it with a lot of cream, I might ruin your day because that's something that's really important to you. So if you told me what's important to you is coffee, I'm going to interpret that in my own way, but that doesn't really tell me about what kind of coffee you like. That's a really simplified version of what might be some very big deals. So I discovered through the process that Tim has a very unique, he's very into clean teeth. And so his dental regime is really long, actually. And we're gonna see it in full. And so I said, Tim, you know, your dental regime, I can tell that keeping your teeth clean is super important to you, and the way that people clean your teeth is super important to you. So again, I'm not gonna go into detail right now, but I'll share when we get to the video portion. But figuring out what people's routines and rituals are can help us figure out what the most important things are to them, and it can help us figure out how to support them. What are areas in their life where they want to be supported, and what are areas where they want to be left alone? Another way to think about it is by doing a good day, bad day evaluation, having the person go through what their typical day looks like and breaking it down into different times of the day, asking them, what does a better version of your day look like? And then asking them, what does a worse version of your day look like? And the goal of this is to say, how can we get your typical days to better days? And how can we make your worst days into a typical day? How can I help you on a day when nothing is going right? Because that's how life is sometimes. So Tim, let's see. So Tim did this with me. Thank you, Tim. And what we found is that all of his worst days kind of revolved around transportation with access. Transportation running late. They also revolved around support staff maybe calling out, having a new support staff who didn't know him really well, having support staff show up late. So those are really common things that we thought we could alleviate with this video. We can't, unfortunately, fix the access bus system, but we can think about ways to get you better support staff through maybe a better recruitment process. Okay, and that leads us into matching. So matching is all about figuring out what kind of person might work best with this individual. Tim is a really unique, fun person, but there might be some people who say, I don't know that I would want to work with Tim. I am not into sarcasm, and that would be hard for me in the day-to-day. And others who would love that. So well-matched staff are more likely to stay in a position. They're less likely to leave. And for those of you who have support staff, whether it be respite or supported living, you know how hard it is to find good support staff who stay for a long time. Plans are more likely to be implemented, and they actually find that behaviors decrease over time when you find a good support staff that matches with a person. Okay, so this is really complicated. Let me simplify it for you. Over here, we have what supports does the person need. So think about things like maybe someone needs cooking or driving or hygiene support. And what kind of skills do they need to do that? So for cooking, for instance, for Tim, you need someone to be able to read a recipe. Someone to be able to be familiar with a kitchen. For driving, you need someone with a license. For hygiene, you need someone who can physically pick you up. All of those are essential. But what we find is that a lot of those skills can be taught. But when we're recruiting people, that's what we tend to focus on. And over here are other things that we could also spend some time looking at. What are personality characteristics of people that work best with this individual? And on the other side, who should not be working with this person? We all have those personality types that we do not get along with for whatever reason, and we should probably avoid spending a lot of time with them. And then down here, we have those things that are nice to have. These are not essential, but if we can find things in common, we can kind of bridge some of those support issues that we might have. So here is Tim's. I didn't fill this side out because the most important part is that Tim really wants people who are active, outgoing, who can take a joke. And over here, he's going to talk a little bit about this, but over here, I thought it was funny. He said he doesn't want people who are on social media all the time. So in his video, you'll see someone on their phone a bit, and he gets a little bit peeved. And he also doesn't like people who are overly negative or too cynical, and people who are too maternal and mother him. And then down here, these are Tim's hobbies. So if you looked at this, is Tim somebody that you might want to work with based on this stuff before knowing what is required of you? I think it'd be a pretty fun job. So Tim, do you want to share with us a little bit about matching and what you learned in this process?
I probably had well over 200 staff that helped me in my lifetime. And unfortunately, this will be something that I'm always adapting to. People come and go in my house all the time. There are staff who are cool with me from the first day that they start, and there are people where I can't wait for them to leave immediately. And I have many staff that became my friends long after they left the job. Matching the right people for me is extremely important. I don't care how much experience that they had in the past or their skill set, because everyone is different. Hiring someone that has no experience is much easier than having someone that has been in this field for a long time. Most of the time, the new person who is starting in caregiving will be much more flexible than a senior trained person. I always let my staff know that my house is not an institution, and I like to go with the flow.
So next, I would like to invite the members of Tim's Circle of Support to come up, and maybe you could share a little bit about your experience if you were able to attend this meeting. Come on. Got some chairs for you and a mic. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself and just let us know how long you've known Tim and in what capacity.
Okay, well, I'm Roxy. I'm the one that works at the gym, and that's where I met Tim, like he said, about 10 years ago. And Tim is just an infectious person. And when he first came in, if his arms weren't tied down, you couldn't help but see him because everything was flailing. And so you couldn't stop but talk to him. But he always has a smile on his face. He always has something great, fun to say, meaningful to say. And we just started to chat. Plus, when he doesn't see me for a while, I could be on the other side of the room and he'll go, "Hey, where have you been?" and really give it to me.
Hi, my name is Maisa. I work with Tim for 15 years. I am a service coordinator, and I enjoy very much working with him. He's a very inspired individual.
Hi, I'm Christian, and I've been friends with Tim for almost, over 20 years. Tim went to high school with my wife. They actually went to a dance together in high school, so Tim never lets me live that one down. That he took my wife out before I did, so. But we bonded over music and entertainment, and we've been friends forever. Been friends with, obviously, my wife and my brother-in-law. They were a constant fixture at concerts. I'd see Tim with my brother-in-law at concerts in the pit, like out there slam dancing in his wheelchair, and just Tim has a really wonderful personality that I think most people wouldn't be able to get to know unless they had a way in, and I think that's why this is a really important thing that we're talking about, obviously. And anyway, my experience with Tim has been great, and we've been lifelong friends, and I'll be the first one in line at his wake for food. So,
On a less somber note, maybe since you guys participated, if you wouldn't mind sharing, like, what did the meeting look like? How did it look different from a typical meeting? Were we sitting down? What were we doing at this meeting?
I had never been to a meeting like this before, and it was very casual, and I had no idea that I would be privileged to be invited to something like this, because as you know, I know him the least of everybody. I'm involved with him the least of everybody, but he has a huge impact on a person no matter how much time you spend with him, that you can't help but miss and take to heart. It was very casual. You come in, you're in his condo, in his apartment, which is very, very nice. He's got mounds of it was muffins, right? Humongous muffins. I told him I couldn't come without coffee, so he had coffee. And everybody came in. He asked people to take off his shoes. I made the big mistake of not doing that, which I do regret, by the way. But it was very casual, and everybody felt real comfortable to let them know what their perspective was. And like I said, I don't work with him on a personal level, but I see him a lot at the gym, and we talk, and I see him interact, and I see how other people are affected by him. So hopefully I was able to give him a little bit different perspective, somebody maybe that's more on the outside, that doesn't really understand so much what he goes through on a day-by-day basis, but it was also a great learning experience for me.
Do any of these poster boards look familiar to you guys? I
Absolutely,
think,
yeah.
how did we use these poster boards, if you remember? It was
When
a
I
while
came
ago.
in, she had poster boards. They were either taped to the wall or they were on easels, and they each had a different subject on. And each one, you were given magic markers or pens, and you just had to write down underneath that topic what you saw from Tim or your perspective about Tim. And, you know, people that worked with him saw different things than I saw, you know, from just seeing him at a health club. But like I said, you could write whatever you wanted. It could have been silly, it could have been seriousness. He just wanted to know each of our own perspectives on how we see him and how he reacts in the world, and maybe how we can help.
Can I ask a different question?
Sure.
So for you, Christian, I think you, let me see. Let me find my
Yes.
question. Sorry. So Maisa, how is this different from other, sorry, Christian, I'll get to you in a second. Maisa, how is this different from other meetings you've attended with Tim? Because you've attended many years worth of meetings.
For me, it was totally different because it was something that
Oh.
I've never done before.
Is it off? Hold on, push. Oh. Try it again. Sorry. There we go, perfect.
Hi, for me, special was very different meetings because it was totally different. I wasn't expecting productive meeting at it was. I had opportunity to learn a lot of things about Tim. Usually my meetings is just me and Tim, and I was able to meet his support group, so it was very productive.
And then Christian, you feature heavily in Tim's video, which we'll show in a little bit.
It's acting.
So, you know, you didn't get paid to do that
Forgive me.
video, but what made you feel comfortable saying, yes, I will help you?
I think because, you know, Tim and I are friends, and we share a lot of things in common, humor, and we find a lot of the same things funny, and we're interested in the same kinds of music. So I think Tim bringing me into the meeting and into the fold and it was great meeting all these other people that are in Tim's life, because I'd never been to a meeting like that before with Tim. It's always been casual, and we've always been friends outside of the system, so to speak.
Sure, yeah.
So I think for me coming in to help with the video, Tim saw that I am in production. I do, film and television production, and so understanding kind of what maybe some of Tim's wants were that he wanted to put in the video. It was kind of all of us putting our heads together. It was easy to see exactly what Tim was looking for in his desire to make a video to help train new staff. So him knowing that I could help in that way was cool. So.
Tim, did you want to add anything? I think you had. No? Okay. And I think Tim was kind of surprised that people were so willing to come. He was like, wow, everybody said they would come. Cool. And that people were willing to come tonight, which is really awesome. So,
well, Tim bribed me with Del Taco before. So.
We don't have to know that stuff. No, they came out of the goodness of their hearts. So yeah, thank you. All right. If you guys want to stay up here, you can for the premiere of the video. Is that okay? Can you just turn the mic off, Christian? Thank you. Stay. Yeah.
Oh, Mike.
Yeah, just turn the mic off. Mike. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we got all this wonderful information about Tim that everybody here was able to help us with. And the next thing we needed to do is we needed to organize this information. We want to organize it into this structure of what are the things that we learned about what's important to Tim. What did we learn about for what's important for him? And how did we figure out what best support looks like specifically for Tim? So this is a lot of information. I got these big categories like his independence, but within that, Tim defined for me through that meeting what his independence looks like for him. His relationships are important to him, but these bullet points tell me what those relationships look like and how they are defined for Tim. He wants to have trusting relationships with the people that support him. He also likes variety, and interestingly, this is the biggest section of his person-centered plan, is all the different ways that he wants variety in his life, whether it be food, film, people, activities, and then overall his health. Tim is a super athlete, and he works out all the time. And in his long form video, which we're not going to show today, you can see his whole workout regime, and I was really inspired by it. Not inspired enough to go to the gym, but I was inspired, Tim, so thank you. Okay, so we also took that information and decided to look at what best supports look like for Tim. So we broke this down into a couple different categories. So for communication, I'm going to highlight this one because Tim, as you noticed today, uses a communication device. And I had a couple of questions because if I were meeting Tim for the first time, I want to know exactly how this functions. So I asked him, you know, can I read over your shoulder while you're typing, or is that not cool? And he said, don't predict what I'm saying or what I'm trying to say when I'm typing on my iPad unless you know me really well. I think we're at a place where I do predict what you say now, so that's pretty cool. I also said, sometimes I notice we'll be having a conversation in a group and it's, you know, you want to speak, but do you want us to wait for you to speak, or do you want us to keep talking and you come back to it later? And so he said, if we're in a conversation, you don't need to wait for me to respond. I want conversation to flow naturally. I might bring it back later to an earlier topic, so just be okay with that. And if we're all okay with Tim bringing back a conversation from a few minutes ago, then everything's going to be okay. Knowing these two things has really helped me to engage with Tim. And these are just two minuscule things in his life. He's got all these other things in how he wants to be supported, which we'll show you in his video. But overall, Tim said, I'm going to tell you what I need when I need it, and you'll learn about me as you get to know me. But again, all of that was a lot of information. So we need to figure out a good, effective, and efficient way to organize it. And so we organized Tim's information into what's called a one-page description. You may want to do this for your loved one. You can ask your service coordinator to do this and to help you with this because they are all trained to do this. So we broke it up into what others like and admire about Tim, what's important to him, and how he wants to be supported. I'm not going to do this for Tim's whole life. I'm going to focus this one specifically on support staff. Tim could also do this in his role here as a self-determination local advisory committee member. He might have different things on here for that role that he has. He could do this at work if he wanted to. He could create any kind of one-page description that he wanted to and tailor the information for that. Tim, do you want to share how you've used your one page?
Right now, I still have to go through an SLS agency because I wasn't lucky in the lottery to be in self-determination. I have about 8 staffs that take shifts at helping me. Having my one-page description of me is very beneficial for the agency on who to hire for me.
Thank you. Okay, and then finally, all of this information is awesome. We've organized it, but what are we going to do with it? So the ultimate goal is to come out of this with an outcome. And that's what the plan is all about. That's why it's called a person-centered plan instead of a person-centered description. So here are a couple of things that we did to help Tim figure out some goals in his life. I like to do an activity called Picture of a Life, where we draw out a couple of different areas of a person's life, and we say to everybody in the room, let's just dream. What could Tim's life look like if there were no limitations? What are things we might want to try if we didn't have things like funding and stuff like that to work with? And if we could just dream a little bit, where would Tim's life go? So I broke up Tim's life into his home life, his meaningful and productive life, his community life, and finally professional services that he may need in the future. A few things that came out: Tim hopes that someday his life won't involve case notes. He said, people don't need to know what I do and where I go all the time. I'm not in jail in my own home. That really stuck with me, so thank you, Tim. And his friend Mercedes said that she hopes that someday Tim doesn't have to rely on a shift schedule and he can have a flow of life that's a little more natural. Have people come and go and not be restricted to these shift schedules. I think, Christian, you came up with some cool stuff for community. I think you were the one that said, I want to get an adaptable bike and take him on a run in like the Long Beach Marathon, I believe. I believe that was you, maybe. Sure. Yes, we'll say it was you. And then, Tim, do you want to add a little bit to that?
Seeing this slide on the screen is a bit awkward for me because I've always been very goal-driven. My mind doesn't stop thinking even when I'm sleeping. Seeing this display has helped me realize on what goals can be achievable now and what items that I can put aside for the time being. As you can see, there is a microphone in the chart. Not to toot my horn, and for those who have heard me speak before, I tend to leave the room very fast after I give a presentation and remain quiet. But I like to speak in public, and at my meeting, we briefly talked about how can I do more public speaking and getting paid. I like to do small steps to reach my ultimate goals. In this section of my plan, my big goal to speak at a TED Talk one day, and once I reach that level of success, I know that goal was accomplished.
And so when I heard this, I thought, well, I would like to have somebody to co-present with me. So we got invited to do a talk at the, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the state council. Yes, at the state council. And Tim and I actually co-presented on that. And I felt like that was one baby step toward helping him achieve that TED goal. That was how I was assisting him. And here we are today taking our presentation on the road. And hopefully we'll get to do this presentation again. And I think all of that is helping you work toward that goal. I don't know if next year you're going to do a TED Talk, but baby steps, right, Ted? I mean, right, Tim? Sorry, not Ted. And then the next thing we did was we did a working, not working evaluation of what was going on in Tim's life. A lot of times when things are not working, we tend to focus on just that and we say, let's get rid of everything. It's not working. And in doing that, there are some things in that situation that we might be getting rid of that are really good. So if we stop and say, let's evaluate what's good in the situation right now, and then let's also evaluate what's bad, it can help us to focus on keeping the things that are good and also where we need to focus our energy on those things that are not working. So this is what Tim's working, not working look like. He really likes living on his own. He likes his job. He likes his workout routine and his friendships and on and on. A lot of really great things. And what was not working was having to reteach people about himself every time he meets somebody new. And that was where the goal for the video came up. But that's a pretty big goal. And so we needed to break it down into small pieces. So his goal was to make a training video for new staff. And the reason is that he doesn't want to have to re-explain himself. And maybe I think you're going to talk a little bit about breaking that down. Yeah, so go for it, Tim.
My person-centered plan meeting took place in January. We didn't really have a plan on what to do next until a few months after. As I mentioned before, once my friends started talking to their friends on the training video for me, other people wanted to be involved also. We found some other friend who worked with video before to film, direct, and edit the video, and we also got more volunteer help along the way to complete my plan. I was really amazed how my friends came together to make all of this happen for me, and more importantly, all of my friends volunteered their time, their skills, and their personal equipment to shoot the video and to do the final cut. We started shooting the training video over 6 months ago, and just a few weeks ago, we had everything ready to edit and be in post-production. When you are creating your own plan, please don't get discouraged at how long it is taking. As long as you have a strong team behind you, you will be amazed on how others are more than willing to help you to figure things out. Making goals is really hard, but you have to break it down to doable pieces. You can think big, like myself, wanting to speak at TED Talk. But I need to take steps that will lead me to the opportunity someday. Like this presentation that I'm doing for free. I speak for free a lot.
So kind of you, Tim, to do this presentation for free. So for his video, we broke it down into a couple different areas. We needed to first gather a little bit of information. And when we were at the meeting, we said, who's going to help you with this? We needed to film the actual daily routine and figure out who was going to help him with that. And we picked some end dates, which didn't work out, but it was good to still have those target dates, even though they weren't what we actually ended up working with. And Tim wanted to choose music for the video, so he put that on there, and then we needed somebody to edit the video. So once we broke it down, we were able to chip at this goal piece by piece. I'm going to show you another way that you can develop some goals. It's called going from presence to contribution. And so this is another woman that I know named Janet. She volunteers at a museum, and she said, I want to do more than just volunteer at this museum. I want to be part of this community. So I had her break down what all of that looks like. So she said, the activity I'm doing is I'm volunteering. What I can do to just be present is I can show up and I can do my job. What I can do to actually have presence and let people know me is I can wear a t-shirt of the museum where I work so that they know who I am. I can smile, I can introduce myself, and I can show them, hey, I'm here. And she is a young woman who is also in a wheelchair. And so what she can do to be an active participant at this job is she said, well, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about the mission of this museum where I'm working so that I can actually say all of these things about this museum and mean them, and I can have meaningful conversations with people. And then she wanted to figure out how she could make better connections with people. And she said, I could probably be a little more social with my coworkers and invite them out to lunch. So that's one of her goals. And she wants to actually share her personal experiences with her coworkers so that they know her better. And then finally, she wants to be a contributing member of this museum. And how she's going to do that is she's going to connect better with her coworkers, and she's going to share her personal life. She felt that sharing who she is as an individual living with a disability, she's got a lot of people coming from out of state, a lot of kids coming to this museum, and she has a lot of power being a representative for her community at this museum, and that was how she was going to be a contributing member. So this is what her goal looked like. By September of next year, she wants to excel at her volunteer job. She's going to try to talk to 2 visitors per day, and she's going to build her confidence. And so the first step was just she's going to meet her coworkers. She wants encouragement when she's feeling nervous, and this is who's going to help her. And she wants somebody to push her outside of her comfort zone. So it doesn't have to be as complex as making a video, but this is just as important to this individual Janet, okay? So that's another way you can think about developing goals for your loved one or for yourself. And now for the grand premiere of Tim's video. Is everybody ready?
Alexa, can you help me?
I can help you with specific questions, like how do I connect Bluetooth? To learn more about what I can do, take a look at the Things to Try section in the Alexa app.
Alexa, what is on my calendar for today?
Today, there is one event remaining. At 10 a.m., there's interviewing and new staff.
Alexa, how do I look?
I'm sure you look just great.
Hi, you must be Tim. My name is Peter.
Can you take off your shoes? I don't like shoe marks on my floors.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, hey Tim, this is Peter. He's here to interview for the position. Oh, this guy. Tim is your typical bachelor living in an apartment of his own. He enjoys sports, music, books, television shows, movies, and most of all, food. Tim really appreciates when people speak directly to him, not at him, treating him with respect and dignity as they would any other person in their life. He doesn't have intellectual challenges and hates to be spoken down to as if he does. He doesn't do well with the quote-unquote group home mentality. Instead, he prefers to have relationships with his support staff that mirror those of his friends. Although he doesn't like a lot of drama, prefers to keep pretty good professional boundaries. Tim likes to be treated like a regular guy with respect, dignity. He doesn't want somebody to treat him like a child or that he's less intelligent than he is. He doesn't need his staff to be hovering around him constantly. He just wants real people. Tim looks for in a support staff somebody that can treat him very real, treat him as typical as possible, be there to help with his physical needs. Tim does not require emotional support or behavioral support. His needs are specific to his activities of daily living that require physical support. So Tim wants to have personal dramas left at the door, come in, get the job done, have a few laughs. He loves food, so he does expect somebody to have some cooking skills that works with him or that can follow a recipe that he creates or provides. They also have to have a good appetite. Tim likes to eat and restaurants, trying new things, different food types, different cultural foods. Tim's interested in all of that. They also have to have the physical ability to be able to transfer him and keep up with him at the gym, clean his home, and Tim will tell you exactly what he needs.
What is your name again? My name's Peter. And you're Tim. Dude, I'm not deaf? Oh, was I talking kind of loud? Yes. Sorry about that. Have you ever helped someone like me before? Yeah, sure, a lot. All the time. What can you cook? Cooking. I'm great at cooking, you know. Toast, popcorn, I think. Ramen, top ramen, super good at that. You like ramen, right? You're an Asian dude. If you wanna make a move, then you better come in. It's just a... Oh, hey.
Put me in my manual wheelchair.
Your manual wheelchair. Oh, is this thing? Oh, okay.
Awesome. Okay, so when Tim gets home, he always transfers over to his manual wheelchair, and this is how he navigates through his house.
Okay.
So the best way to transfer him is to get the wheelchair as close as you can, because he cannot walk backwards. Okay?
Okay.
We're gonna unsnap his belt. We count to 3. 1, 2, 3. He does most of the work. You're just holding him for stability and guiding him. Always keep your balance. He can walk side to side, but he cannot walk backwards and forward. Always make sure his brakes are on as well.
Alrighty there, Tim. Hey, got some food for you. I got a microwave corn dog here for you. I cut it up, just like you like it, hopefully. And let's put this bib on you, so we can get right into that corn dog machine. Yeah. All right. Here's this. There we go. All right, now. Here comes the corn dog train. Nice and ketchupy.
Whoa, now, are you feeding a child or a grown man here? When Tim eats, use a bib. They're located in the drawer in the kitchen. He likes to be fed like a grown man. Do not cut his food for him. If his food does need to be cut because it's a steak or a meat or a potato of some sort, please do it in front of him as you're feeding him. Make sure that you're wiping his face regularly. Make sure that he's having periodic sips of water. Don't mix his food together. Don't feed him ketchup. He hates it. Before Tim brushes his teeth, he flosses. First, he dumps some water in his mouth and let him rinse and spit 3 times. Please put gloves on when flossing his teeth. If you want, there is a face mask also to use that will protect flying objects from pegging you in the eye. that from personal experience. Start just as you would floss your own teeth on one side of his mouth, and wrap the dental floss around each tooth, kind of in a C shape, and go in an up and down motion, tooth by tooth, starting from the bottom, working your way up to the top. And this does get easier with practice. When he's done, he will rinse and spit 3 times. Before you start brushing Tim's teeth, the first thing he'll do is place his towel that's hanging in the bathroom around his neck like a bib. Toothpaste on the toothbrush, brush his teeth. It's automatically timed for 30 seconds per quadrant. Start on one side of the mouth. Sonicare toothbrush will buzz to tell you to move to the next quadrant. Continue to do so until you have brushed all of his teeth. Do not place your hand on his head when you're brushing him. It hurts his neck. Try not to put your hand on his body at all. When he's done brushing, he will spit in the spit container, rinse his mouth 3 times, rinse and spit, rinse and spit. He has a tongue scraper. You use that by, he'll stick his tongue out, quickly scrape his tongue into the spit container. Also, Tim may ask you for mouthwash as well. Dump the rinse in his mouth, he'll rinse and he'll spit into the container. When everything is done, rinse it all out, lay it to dry. Do not put the toothbrush back on the charger unless he tells you so. Okay, Tim has a really nice van, and it is a wheelchair accessible van. First thing you do is walk out with his van keys, pushing the door button twice so it will open and the ramp will come out. Tim will automatically roll himself in there if he's in his power chair, otherwise you can push him in. He will place the wheelchair where it needs to go, or you will see the grooves in the passenger side of the van where the wheels can go. There are 3 blue straps that will help you secure his wheelchair in. If you are using his manual chair, again, be sure to put the brakes on. Connect, Tim will point to each strap with his foot and show you where to connect it. There is 1 strap on the left-hand side, 1 strap on the right-hand side, and 1 strap in the back. Once you've strapped him in, you can put Tim's seatbelt on. And when you start the van, you can push the door close button, the ramp will go, and then you drive as normal and as safely, avoiding holes at all possible. When you are taking Tim out of the van, open up the door, push the red button, it will release the straps, and Tim can assist that using his feet, with some of those, using his feet. Unhook each area of the wheelchair and he will maneuver himself out of the van, or you would back him out of the van if he was using his manual chair. Please be sure to use the handicap placard, which is located somewhere in the van at all times, and if you're parked in a handicap spot. And lastly, make sure that the door is locked and you have keys in your hand.
See you tomorrow, Tim. Shoots.
Yeah, right. I'm not hiring that slacker.
Friends help each other any way they can. When you're up at bat, they'll be your biggest fan. If you're in a pit, they'll pull you out of it. It ain't wrong to write a song for all your friends to sing along.
Okay, Tim, last thoughts and reflections on making your recruitment video and your person-centered plan.
I've learned a great deal about myself in this process. First, PCP is so much better than IPP because it's more catered to me than ratios and numbers that doesn't mean anything in my day-to-day life. Second, I've learned if I asked for help, I can do most things that is out of my reach. For instance, this training video that you just watched, it would have been still a dream if my friends didn't come all together to be a part of my team. Lastly, whatever is going on in the world and in the news, it really doesn't matter. What really matters is your circle of support, and I never knew that my circle had my best interest. You can find yours too.
Thank you, Tim. So thank you all for listening to Tim's story and sharing our world premiere of his video. It was really exciting. Does anybody have...
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Tim. So this is our contact information here. That's my email and my phone number. That's Tim's email. You can get a hold of him there if you have any questions. A lot of this information is brought to you by the learning community. So all of those tools that you saw in the presentation, if you want to print out blank copies, go to this website and they have a ton more tools in there. And it's a whole community that you could join if you wanted to. Thank you again to everybody and good luck in self-determination.